We are trying to direct the movie of our lives. We do this by passing an image into the gap between moments, the actual instance where we are present. So most of the time, we're just in chunks of 1/10 of a second when we're processing. But there's a moment beyond thought, in my theory, that we are actually present. So we want a powerful and positive self-image to go into that gap because we think, well, then God will love me, right? I mean, that's one idea, that God will love me if I love myself, which is technically true, but the idea is that you want to love yourself not out of any fear, anger, or desire, not out of any form that you're able to control. In other words, not from directing the script. You love yourself and simultaneously hand over direction of the movie. Right? Because if you loved yourself, if you really loved yourself, you wouldn't need the movie to go any particular way. It wouldn't matter. So the fact that you want the movie to go a particular way is proof to, we could say, God or the gap or yourself. The fact that you want to direct is proof that you don't love yourself, because you're making your love of yourself dependent on how the movie goes. So that's why we have this fight or flight or freeze response. That's why we have fear, anger, and desire, because we're having some dispute with how our image is seen and how the life story is going. So someone can go to a speech language pathologist and say, I want my child to do better in school, but if we're perpetuating this same cycle, or stuttering or articulation, whatever the malady is, if we're perpetuating the same idea, which is that life needs to be controlled and the image needs to be good, then you're caught in hell, you're caught in suffering. So, you could be really dramatic and say anyone who's doing that is not living up to the oath, the Hippocratic oath of do no harm. But how do we get there? And so religion has tried, and we don't know the success rate really, but religion has tried to say, well, just love God and hand it over to God. And for a lot of people, they're like, well, there's a part of me, there's a thought that says there is no God, or that God doesn't love me. And so the reframing is that you're just a script editor. You're writing notes for the director, who's going to see the script in between the gap between time anyway. It's not like, the divine isn't aware, but we're just reporting our level of belief in the divine and reporting our level of belief in ourselves and love of ourselves. This is not to judge ourselves. That's not what it's about. It seems like it's about that, but really it's about how are you reacting to the judgments? In other words, are you able to hand a report about the judgments you have about the self or God to God and say, okay, this at the end of this 1/10 of a second, this is the level of judging, resisting, and seeking control this person had. And guess what? They're not judging themselves for it. They're not trying to change it. This is great. They've accepted the role that you've given them, God. Right? I have accepted the role that you have given me. And then whatever self-image gets popped up there, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Because you're surrendered, then you can be trusted with that. And because you're not needing to, it's all a bunch of ideas that all collapse to each other, mean the same thing. You no longer need to judge yourself. You no longer need to direct the movie. You love God. You trust God. Now, I can say these words, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I am embodying them. And so it doesn't matter if you say the words. It matters if you're embodying it. If you're embodying it, then there's a shift. If you're saying the words, you're just saying the words, and maybe you keep repeating the words, and eventually it'll become true. But an easy way to do it is just simply to look at it as that this moment is about to end, and I'm going to hand over my resistance to the moment. I'm going to let whatever's going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, okay, I report that.